Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast, all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. My guest today is Max Kettler, a golf instructor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Max is a young instructor, but is it somebody I recruited when he was in high school. He's going to talk about his college golf experience and how he got into teaching to begin with. He's a really, really engaging personality, and I think a great young teacher. I think you'll enjoy this interview. All right, Better Than I Found It. Listeners, please welcome a good friend of mine and actually a coaching colleague, Max Kettler. Max, great to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, thanks, Coach McGraw. I'm a big fan of yours and the podcast, so glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I called you a coaching colleague. You're not actually coaching college golf right now, but you are coaching the game of golf, and we're going to talk about that in just a little while. But do you have any lessons scheduled for this afternoon?
Not any private lessons, but every single afternoon I do coach a class of junior golfers, anywhere from 2 kids to 6 kids, whoever and how many kids just want to show up. So I'm teaching every day.
Good for you. We'll get into that current position you're in there, but first we're gonna kind of go back in time. I like to do that a lot of times with my guests, whether they're a coaching guest or a tour player or just whatever. For one, just how did you get into the game? I mean, you're in a Gulf state, that's Texas, and being from basically Dallas-Fort Worth area, that's a golf mecca. So, I mean, I know that it was always potentially that you could get into the game of golf, but who got you started?
Yeah, I love this question for so many reasons, because everyone has a different answer. And you get to learn so much about people through this answer. And also because golf, you're right, is such a big part of my life. And I don't spend enough time thinking about my golf history. So it's interesting. It really wasn't who got me into the game. It was kind of a circumstance. The game kind of found me in a way. So I grew up in Huntersville, North Carolina, which was just a wonderful, cute little town outside of Charlotte. And I lived there from about 2006 till 2013. And the Kettler family, we were big baseball players. And my parents stumbled onto this public golf course just because my grandmother, my mom's mom, was a big golfer at the time. And she thought it would be a good idea for us to get involved in the game. And my mom was like, sure, we'll find something for me and my brother to do. And this public course in town called Birkdale Golf Club, which was an Arnold Palmer design, had a membership for 7 years for $7,000.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? Greens fees, carts, all range balls included. You just can't find that nowadays. So we were, like I said, a big baseball family, and it took a little bit of time for me and my brother to get into it. But after about 10 rounds, I was instantly hooked. So because of that membership and that deal, and just the family getting together and all of that, that's kind of how I stumbled into the game.
Wow, that is the most unusual story that I've had of a podcast guest so far, getting into the game of golf. And you did, your dad, I guess his work took you guys to Dallas-Fort Worth, Dallas area?
That's right. So even though I would say I grew up in North Carolina, and my being in North Carolina kind of got me into the game, I would say I'm from Texas, because especially when it comes to my golf career, just because so much has happened here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you obviously ended up playing golf at South Lake Carroll High School, and you were a teammate of one of my former players, Colin Cober. And Colin, that's how I even found out about you originally, was Colin told me that he had a kid on the team a year younger than him that was a good player. So tell me about, being a teammate of Colin, maybe your high school coach, who I've known very well through the years, but just you had, I know, a great experience at Carroll.
I had a wonderful experience at Carroll. So I moved to Texas in 2013, in May of 2013, and this was right at the beginning of my freshman year. And golf back in North Carolina was kind of still considered a hobby for me. And when we were deciding on what high school to attend, either Chisholm Trail High School, which was a charter school, or South Lake Carroll, I kind of wanted to go to Chisholm Trail because that's kind of what I was comfortable with, because I was at a charter school in middle school in North Carolina. But my parents and my brother wanted to go to South Lake. So I was outvoted 3-1. And my mom looked at the athletics of South Lake Carroll and was like, Max, you're a decent golfer, but not anywhere close to where these Carroll kids are at. Like, these guys just got second at state. And this is the team of Matt Gilchrist, Corbin Cassidy. These are big time players going to play big time college golf. And so I looked at that and I was just like, Mom, you're right. Like, this is big time golf here at South Lake. And so I had to make a decision right then and there. When I moved to Texas, is golf still just going to be a hobby for me? Or do I actually kind of want to make it more of a career, if you will? And I decided to make it a career. And so I missed tryouts my freshman year. But again, just kind of how luck had it, I was sitting at lunch with, on my first day of school, was sitting at lunch with a good friend of mine, Rob Ruff, who made the JV team. And we were just talking, about, hey, Max, you're new. What do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a golfer. And this is, about what I shoot and blah, 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 blah. And he just jaw dropped. He's like, you're not on the golf team? I'm like, no, I missed tryouts. I just moved here. And he's like, we need to get you on that JV team and I'll hook you up with the coach. So thankful to Rob. He really got me to play golf at Carroll. And I gave him a nice shout out at my senior banquet speech. So Rob, if you're listening to this, thanks again, my friend. And so that's kind of how my golf at Carroll started. Was, again, just kind of a luck of occurrence, meeting Rob at lunch on my first day of school. So it wasn't until sophomore year when I made varsity my sophomore year, and when Colin and I introduced to each other. And I knew of Colin, right? He played on state championship teams and he was a good golfer. And so I knew of Colin, and Colin probably knew of me. Of course, I was the only sophomore to make the varsity team on a team that was really packed with a lot of great players: Mason Greenberg, Tristan Fisher, George Gardner, Trent Hill, all these guys, Colin Hamilton, a lot of great golfers. And so our relationship at the beginning did not start off great. Which is interesting because our relationship now is so wonderful. But I thought he was a little bit intimidating, to put it nicely. And he probably thought I was a little bit peculiar. So we just were on completely different spectrums on this teammate or friendship kind of thing. So it wasn't until about the second semester of my sophomore year where him and I really started to respect each other, where I looked at him and was like, wow, this guy is really good at golf, and I can learn a lot from him. And, he was interesting because he wasn't a whole lot of talk, or whenever he did talk, his actions backed it up. And I really respected that from him. And then he kind of looked at me and was like, okay, hey, this young sophomore is here to learn this year. And, but I think the work ethic is kind of what allowed me to gain respect from Colin. And then again, when it was junior year, when I started to be in that top 5 and hang out with Colin a lot more, started to practice with him, started to compete with him at tournaments and stuff like that, that's when him and I and our relationship really started to take off. And he really became a mentor. I don't think there is a single person besides my mother who has had a more influential impact on my golf career than Colin Cober. He's just such a great friend and such a great teammate and everything. He's fantastic.
He was a great teammate to his teammates here at Baylor, but a lot of it was just by example. Colin wasn't so vocal, but his example was, I'm going to work hard every day. He trained his body the right way. He was an unbelievable student. and a great player as well. He had about, I think, 8 top 10s while he was here. But I just wondered how that all came about with you and him. And he one day, as I was, he had already committed to come to Baylor. And I said, who would you like to join you in that 2017 class? And he named several guys. And he said, you might look at a young kid on our team named Max Kettler. He's a year younger than me. And I think I saw you, gosh, I want to say Vaquero, I think is the first time I saw you. U.S. junior qualifying, maybe? Yeah,
That's right.
I've got a pretty good memory on that. But anyway, so it didn't end up that you came to Baylor. In fact, your recruiting took you to a Baylor connection. Mm-hmm. And so I want to bring Mikkel in here. Mikkel, my assistant. You on there, Mikkel?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. So Mikkel, I want you and Max to take it over here for a few minutes because you were at Stephen F. Austin, SFA, at the time, a brand new coach, and you and Max came into, you got to know each other. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I was at SFA as a brand new coach and was involved with both the men's and women's team. And Max actually ended up being the first commit of my career. I was working with Trey Schrader, so we both recruited Max, but saw a lot of good qualities in Max. I think his hard work was evident. I think sometimes he tried a little bit too hard on the golf course, maybe. Would you say that's kind of accurate, Max?
100%.
Yeah, but his tenacity was awesome, and he was a great get for us at the time. And man, that was fun watching Max play a lot of golf there. And then, he was joined by Andy Lopez in the same class, and for SFA, for our school, having those guys, I think it was the 6A state championship. You guys both finished in the top 6 that year individually. So it was an awesome class for us. And Max was a lumberjack through and through. Once we got Max on board, he was 100% in. So that recruiting process was pretty fun. And I know, Max, that you had started your recruiting process a little bit prior to me getting the job there, but that was a pretty hard and long process for you for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I think the reason that was because I didn't really get good at golf until after I committed. So I just never really had that big breakthrough moment that a lot of junior golfers have. And once I signed my NLI to SFA is when that weight was kind of off my back, and I was just able to kind of be free and be more comfortable on the golf course. And then I just had a remarkable senior year, and like you said, did really well at the state tournament that year, which was a really fun way to end my high school career. But you're right, I did try a little too hard probably in the recruiting process and on the golf course. I just wanted it a lot. And you kind of said it too. I was a lumberjack through and through when I was at SFA. I don't really do things kind of 50%. I'm either all in or all out on something. And just what SFA had to offer was really fun for me. You were a great coach, and I was really excited to play for you and Trey and get ready to play college golf. So
yeah, it was fun. And unfortunately I ended up leaving that year, so I actually never got to coach you and Andy, but I felt very proud of the recruiting class. And it was a really, really cool start, very fun for me to get to recruit you guys. And backtracking here because of listening to the conversation, I think I got the chance to coach Colin Cobra here for a year or two, and you two, the way I know you, in some ways you could not be more different. But I think probably where you guys found the respect for each other, which is where I have respect for you, Max, and like maybe the thing that stood out the most in the recruiting process is you're 100% in, like you said, and that means you work hard, you want it bad, and so does Colin. And I think that's probably an overlap where you guys connected. And once you came on board and you were a lumberjack, man, you were like our best marketing tool out there. Like you were helping us out with that class and the next class, and I knew you were at home working hard. So I always really appreciated that about you.
Hey, Mikkel, thank you so much for those kind words. It really means a lot to hear that from you. And yeah, you're right. It's funny how, again, bringing back in Colin, how our relationship just as teamers and just being friends has been able to succeed, and we've been able to be so cool with each other, even though you're right, we are so different. And you kind of hit it right on the head. We just wanted the same things at the end of the day. But thank you so much for what you said. It means a lot to hear that from you. And you just did a fantastic job at SFA, and it makes a lot of sense in my mind where you're at now, going to Texas Tech and being where you're at Baylor, and just so happy to see where you're at in your coaching career. So congratulations to you.
Sure. Thanks, man. Well,
Mikkel, thank you for dropping in for that bit of information. I will say one thing, and see if you agree with this, Mikkel. You've been coaching for 5, 6, 7 years, Mikkel, and I've been coaching for 36 years. 100% of the time when you ask a prospect, "Are you a hardworking kid?" 100% of the time they will say, "Yes, sir." So it's really good in Colin's case and in your case, Max, when that question may or may not have been asked, but when we were looking at that in the recruiting process, you and Colin both came through in spades right there. It was like you actually put your money where your mouth is as far as hard work. What would you say that, Mikkel, or not?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody knows Max. You can probably hear it on this podcast too, the way he speaks. He's, like he said himself, he's all in. It's pretty evident. And at the time, Trey Schrader and I felt like we definitely needed that at SFA. And so that was the main quality. And I knew that you were trying a little bit too hard, Max. And like you said, once you got that commitment under your belt, it's kind of just freed you up a little bit, and you started playing great, which was awesome to see.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Max, so you get on the campus at SFA, and I know Coach Mikkel ended up leaving and going to Texas Tech, but tell me, I know you had some, I guess what you call sort of disappointing things happen, one of them being a major injury. So talk about that, and then how eventually you transferred, because that's also a process. So there's two processes here. One, dealing with injury and coming back from injury, and two, actually going through a transfer situation.
Right. So this whole process of me transferring and really just my whole college golf experience is a major, major part of my golf story. And I use one word to describe my college golf experience and as a player, and that is uninspiring. So I got to SFA and I played my first 2 tournaments really, really well. I garnered top 2 10s in my first 2 tournaments as a freshman, which I thought was pretty cool. And I just won the 2017 North Texas Am prior to coming into college. So I just had 3 really good events in a row. And my experience at SFA just unfortunately didn't work out. And I don't really have to get into that. It just, for personal reason, it just wasn't work out, and that's okay. But because of my play for the first few events of my freshman year, I got talking to a few of my really close golf colleagues, and I was like, "Hey, some things are happening over here, and I'm playing some good golf. I'm thinking about transferring." And it was kind of unanimous across the board, and they were like, "Yeah, I think that'd be good for you." So I started looking at a few schools, and I ended up going to Louisiana Tech. And kind of the same thing, which has been evident in my golf career. It just really perfect timing really kind of came about. Louisiana Tech just lost a few good kids at semester, and they just had ample amount of scholarship, ample amount of room on their team to bring me in at semester. And so I got to Louisiana Tech, and that's kind of when everything just really got bad. And it's not about the the culture of the team or the university or the coach or nothing. La Tech, like SFA, is a great place to go if you want to play college golf. When I started playing at Louisiana Tech, I noticed that my health started to really deteriorate. I was playing at a golf tournament in San Antonio, and this must have been my second tournament of my second semester, my freshman year. And I was on the 10th hole of must have been my final round. And I was reading a 6-foot par putt. And then, I bend down to read it and line it up. And then I stand up, and I stood up and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. I immediately knew that something in my lower back just, I don't know, cracked or shifted or something. I don't remember the feeling exactly of what it was. But once I stood up after I lined up that putt, I knew that my back just never felt the same. So I finished the round, didn't play great. And I was going through qualifying and everything else. And my back just was in just agonizing pain, always, like so much pain that I couldn't bend down to touch my toes. And if I did, I couldn't even get myself back up. Like I was locked in that position for about 60 seconds. And I needed like a lot of assistance to get myself upright again. Again, a lot of pain where I couldn't even sleep at night. And, God bless the Louisiana Tech staff, trying to help me get through this. They didn't really know what it was. So they just injected me with a lot of steroids and so much more painkillers and having me do all of this rehab. And it was just a grueling 6 months, really, until August of my coming into my sophomore year. So this must have been August of 2018, where I was finally having so much pain in my back, where I was like, I have to go see someone. And this is what's really unfortunate about the whole situation. Because of my win at the North Texas Am in 2017, that really opened up a lot of doors for me as an amateur player, where I was able to go play in the Trans-Miss, the Texas Am, the Southern. I was able to do a whole bunch of things as an amateur player that summer, but I wasn't able to perform to my ability at all because I was just scrambling to make cuts. I could hardly finish through and complete a golf swing. So it really just kind of sucked because I had the biggest summer of my golf career going into my sophomore year of school, but my back was hurting so bad I would either miss a cut or make it right on the number and finish dead last and just shoot a terrible score because my back was hurting so bad. So come August, going into my sophomore year, I finally go see a doctor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and tell him about my symptoms. We go get an MRI and everything else, and immediately is like, hey man, you broke your back. And that was almost relieving to hear, because I'm like, okay, finally, I'm not crazy. I knew there was something wrong, and I'm glad he told me that it was. So he put me in a back brace for the remainder of 2018. And that healed my back. And then I had to do rehab from Christmas until about March 1st. And when it came to the start of the spring, and when it came, or excuse me, I got my dates mixed up there. So I was in a back brace until about Christmas. And then I got out of the back brace in December, and I was rehabbing through December until February, the beginning of February. And so once I finally got out of that back brace and got through my rehab and stuff like that, and I was eager and ready to get back into college golf, there just wasn't an opportunity for me to compete at Louisiana Tech anymore. The team has just moved in a different direction. Mentally, I was kind of also ready to just move on from college golf. I was out of it for a year, and I was just kind of ready to enjoy the game beyond competing every single day. And so, me and Louisiana Tech, we just mutually parted ways. for the betterment of myself and for the team, right? They, like I said, they kind of went in a different direction than myself, and that was totally fine. And so that was in February, and that was interesting because my entire life, as far as I could remember, I was a competitive golfer since about 6th grade. And it was all that I've done. Worked hard, maybe like Coach Mikkel said, a little too hard to be a competitive golfer. I really wanted it, but it just didn't pan out because of that injury. And then in March is when I gave you a call. So that's kind of how
you did.
Yeah.
And from that, you had already hatched an idea that maybe you'd like to be a coach one day. So took you through that process, gave you a bunch to read, and oh my goodness, are you a voracious reader? You do love reading. I think I must have suggested 10 or 15 books. You read every one of them plus. So you knew you wanted to get into coaching, but unfortunately, there just weren't any coaching jobs available at the time. So tell me how you got into coaching women's softball, and just tell me about that, because that was an incredible diversion. You went sideways to get to where you want to go eventually.
Yeah, it's a cool story. So when I left Louisiana Tech and when my college golf career ended, I knew there was one place I wanted to go. I wanted to go home and study at the University of Texas. And everyone knows that getting into UT, especially as a transfer, is a tough thing to do. But again, another cool opportunity in my life happened, and I got into UT. And to make, and I love this story too, just to make it even more sweet. I was on the golf course with a few of my friends when I found out that I got into school. So I got into the place I wanted to go, and I found out on my favorite place, right, the golf course. So I love that story. And so I knew I wanted to go to UT Austin. And when I got to UT Austin, I knew I wanted to be a coach. And so I know we talked in length a lot about trying to become the manager, because one of Colin's teammates and one of my good friends and teammates at Carroll too, Dylan Murray, was your manager at the time. And I had that idea in my head, like, hey, I want to be the manager for UT Golf. That would just be a cool way for me to stay in college golf. That would be a cool way for me to get into college coaching one day. And I know you were totally on board, and you're like, hey, yeah, give it a try. So I was able to get a meeting, 2 meetings actually, with John Fields and JP. And I thank them a bunch for just having the opportunity or just making time for them to meet with me. And they just finished runner-up at 2019. So this must have been, was that the Blessings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they just finished runner-up at the national championship at the Blessings. And so they had no business meeting with me. Washed up college player who just wants to be a manager for the team. But they, gave me a lot of time, and I appreciated that. And it turned out it didn't work out for a very valid reason. They had 2 coaches on staff. They had Richie as their volunteer at the time. They had an equipment guy. So they had 4 guys around the program at all times for a team of about 12 kids. So that's just a lot of people on staff. They didn't need to add a 5th guy. They probably didn't need me or have a job for me to do. So totally makes a lot of sense. But in that meeting, JP gave an interesting piece of advice, and you backed this up too. He said, go out and just coach college athletics. It doesn't matter if it's golf. It can be softball or soccer or swimming. It doesn't matter. Just go out and coach and just see if you can see yourself being coach. If you enjoy college athletics on that side of the sport, just go out and do it and see if you just enjoy it. And so I, listening to your advice and listening to JP, I was like, that's a really good idea. So I started emailing every university and every coach in the Austin area with any sports background that I knew. So football, basketball, baseball, softball, and then golf. Unfortunately, no golf coach got back to me, but softball got back to me very, very quickly. Okay. And this is another kind of cool story. So I was able to be the volunteer assistant at Southwestern University, which is just a D3 school in Georgetown, Texas, a little north of Austin. And the head coach at Southwestern was the assistant coach at Louisiana Tech while I was still at La Tech. So we knew of each other because I would go to all the softball games. And she thought I was like a boyfriend of one of the players, but no, I was just a fan of softball. I thought softball was cool. And so she thought, so we kind of knew of each other while we were at La Tech. And so she's like, oh, you were that guy. I was like, yeah. So that's kind of how I got into softball. And then, as you kind of made a mention to earlier, it took me all the way up to South Dakota. And you want me to talk about that?
Well, I mean, obviously it was a time you spent in South Dakota as a coach. I know, just tell me this. I mean, you spent, I don't know how long it was there, but a while. Did you also harbor a belief that you'd be back into college golf coaching at one point?
It's a great question. At the time, it was always in the back of my head, that golf is who I was and kind of where I felt most comfortable and probably where I wanted to be. But I also was prepared and worked extremely hard for a future as a college softball coach. I am not surprised that I'm back in golf. It's just who I am and what I know best. But my time in softball really helped me as a golf coach. I feel like I have a better understanding of female athletes and a better understanding of time management and more creative practice plans, thanks to my time in softball.
Well, that's great. I think that any coaching experience would help you because coaching is coaching. It just truly is. And your story is a little different. It's unique to be able to coach women's college softball, with the belief that you wanted to one day be a golf coach. But anyway, you get back to Texas, and that's where we get to your current position. So I want you to talk about your current teaching position. I think anybody who's ever been in the game for a long period of time has taught the game at some point. And so now you're teaching. You mentioned earlier you're teaching in the afternoons, but tell me where you are, who you're teaching, what's that all about, and what's the experience like for you?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. So I'm currently a golf instructor out at Cowboys Golf Club, and I work under Britt Sherrock, who is kind of the director of instruction out there. And so we have this program, this little junior program that we run, and that's essentially the bulk of my job is running that junior program, which is a whole bunch of fun, coaching junior golfers. So I will basically, like I said kind of earlier, from 4:30 to 7:30, we split that time block up into two 90-minute sections. Essentially the first 90 minutes is for younger golfers, kind of new beginners. And then the second 90 minutes is for golfers who are more elite, older kids, late middle school, early high school, who kind of have more athleticism or a little bit better, kind of have more golf knowledge. And it's my job to make them better at golf. And it's just a whole bunch of fun. And I also do my own private lessons out there, and I'm more active on social media and trying to gain more visibility and learn a ton. And so, yeah, that's kind of my position, is just being a golf coach now. And it's interesting doing it as an individual instructor and not having the team environment and that structure. But I absolutely love coaching golf and, being able to influence kids and adults alike in the game and through the game of golf.
Max, you are a very enthusiastic human being. I've always believed enthusiasm can be a 15th club in a golf bag. I've always said that. So does your enthusiasm help you in teaching the game?
Well, that's a good question. Golf can be monotonous, especially when you're dealing with kids at an age where monotony is a lot of their life. And what I mean by that is, they go through a same routine, right? Okay, I got school, I wake up at 7:30, I got school from, 8:30 to 2:30. And then I got something from 3 to 4, and then I got golf practice from 5 to 6, right? So there's a lot of monotony in golf, even if it's not with a kid, right? It's just sometimes they get into a habit of beating range balls for hours or something like that. So being enthusiastic just adds a little bit of spice, or just adds a little bit of excitement into a game that some kids can find to be boring. I'm constantly having to, it's interesting, right? You know, I'm 24 and I'm dating and whatever, and I'm constantly defending golf to people who are non-golfers. And I'm like, well, if you come out and watch me coach for just an hour, right? I get these kids to laugh. I get these kids to open up and express a little bit more of a little bit more of their personalities. And no one's the same. And I don't want kids to necessarily emulate who I am as a person or a coach, but as long as I can just get a kid to smile, or get a kid to interact with the other kids in class or something like that, then I did my job, right? My goal every single lesson, whether I'm giving a 60-minute private lesson, a 2-hour new student assessment, or a 90-minute junior class, is to make that 90 minutes the best 90 minutes of the week for the one time I see that kid. So, and that enthusiasm is a great, like you said, a great 15th club in a bag to just get those kids to see the love in golf and kind of express their personality and see how they can get their personality to be expressed through the game.
And you're planting seeds in these young kids that may or may not hope one day they really take to the game, and golf instructors like you all around the country are planting the seeds for the future generations of golf. And it's huge for the business of golf that you guys do a good job. I mean, so the more interesting you make it, the more fun you make it, the better. I remember my dad was a club pro for 40 years. And I remember he tried to make the junior golf program a lot of fun for kids. And because you're right, it can be boring. Some kids think it's a very boring sport. So I love your enthusiasm. Don't ever lose that. I'm going to ask another question about your teaching. Who do you think has been the biggest influence on your teaching style? So it could be a national coach like David Ledbetter or something like that, or it could be somebody you work for currently. Who's the biggest influence on the way you teach the game?
Yeah, great question. I got two answers. When it comes to technically teaching the game, it's Mike Bender. I will watch everything he posts on social media, and then some. I love what Mike Bender teaches. I think it just makes just a remarkable sense. When it comes to the more of the intangibles, right? Because in golf coaching, there's a lot of intangibles. I would honestly have to say you, because you allowed me to. You showed me the importance that coaching is more than just the X's and O's. And you gave me the permission to learn that through books, and you showed me resources. And then just the way our relationship has progressed over the years, right? When I was at that time, when I just left college golf, right, due to injury, and I was no longer a player, and I didn't want to do politics because that's what I studied in college. And it was a really, really interesting time, right? That February to March of 2019. And, you played a remarkable role in my coaching career and in my life, because you gave me a lot of foundation. Hey, I need a mentor. I need some direction. I want to be a coach. Who's going to help me? And, you allowed me to, be a coach the right way. You allowed me to learn, you allowed me to get better. So when it comes to the tangibles of coaching, right? Hey, this is how you set the takeaway. This is how you do impact. All this tangible stuff for technical golf instruction, Mike Bender, no doubt. But when it comes to the intangibles, I would probably look to you first.
I did not know that. I wasn't aware of that. But again, you never know what seeds you're planting. I remember when you first asked me if I would help you get into coaching, I said, that'd be fine, but I need you to make a list. Do you remember the list I had you make to begin with?
Absolutely.
What was it?
So it has changed from the list. The list has changed and has molded into a sentence. So instead of a bulleted list, my sentence, or I've kind of created a sentence, and it makes a lot of sense now that I'm in golf. And it's really, I want to build winners and lower scores. And the winners is not just, oh, it would be great if a student of mine goes to a golf tournament. And it's been cool, right? As a young coach, I do a lot of work within the VGA, which is the Veterans Golfers Association. And I've coached a few of those guys, and they've gone on to win one of their little tournaments, which was really fun to have them email me back with that. But it's more about just teaching them qualities about being winners in life. Hey, this is how you treat a woman. This is how you be a gentleman. This is how golf can teach you really important aspects in life. So instead of the bulleted list, I have curated a sentence that I believe strongly in, and it's to build winners and lower scores.
And I think you mean winners in life and in golf, but winners definitely in life.
100%.
Wonderful. I love that. I think every coach could learn from that, because unfortunately in the business world of coaching nowadays, you have to be successful. You have to win. You have to do all those things. I think sometimes coaches forget that the lessons you're teaching them that could help them be a better person, a better citizen, whatever, sounds kind of corny, but it's real. So I appreciate you doing that. Would you like to get back into college coaching one day? I mean, I know you love what you're doing right now. Could you ever see yourself as a college golf coach?
I could 100% see myself as a college coach. And I think it kind of goes back to how my career in golf has always been. And that's if a great opportunity comes to find me. Every time I go and seek something, it typically doesn't really work out, right? I tried a little too hard in my recruiting. I tried a little too hard in my recruiting, and, it just didn't work out. I tried a little too hard as a player. I broke my back. I tried a little too hard at one point to be a college golf coach, and I didn't receive any emails back. So I'm fairly confident that I will receive an email or a call at just a perfect opportunity at a perfect time in my life. But as you alluded to, I am really happy with what I'm doing and where I'm at right now. I love what I do, and I love who I work for and at the course that I'm at. So I'm in a really, really good spot. But if the right call comes, I will definitely pick it up. So,
I'd like to remind you, you're only 24. You got a lot of highway ahead of you.
It's interesting to think. I feel so old sometimes, and I feel like I have to have it all made. But you're right. I just got to take it day by day.
Yeah, we all do. Well, listen, Max, I've really enjoyed having you on today. I'm going to do one other thing with you, which is a speed round, which I haven't prepared you for. But before we go, thanks so much for taking the time to spend this time on the podcast with me today. All right, so here's a speed round. Chipotle or Chick-fil-A?
Oh, Chipotle.
George Strait or Luke Bryan?
George Strait.
Anybody that hesitates on that, I have to just question, why would you hesitate? Maybe you were just shocked that I would even ask the question. All right. Next, favorite professional football team?
The Indianapolis Colts.
Wow. Okay. I expected the Dallas Cowboys now that you're a transplanted Texan. Favorite pro athlete?
Favorite pro athlete. It was Phil Mickelson, but he's a little controversial now. So I think my favorite pro athlete, I think you're going to like this. I think it's Tiger Woods.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Favorite pro athlete, non-golfer?
Favorite pro athlete, non-golfer. Man, that's a tough one. See, I love football. I love college athletes. I love college athletics. I love college athletics, being a player and a coach. But favorite pro athlete, Francisco Lindor.
Wow. Okay. I thought you might say Peyton Manning, Colts, but you didn't. How many holes in one have you made?
I have made 3.
3. Okay. Favorite course you've played?
Played a lot of good ones. Probably Whispering Pines.
Nice spot. What a play. We get to play that every 3 or 4 years for the Big 12 championship. Just love that place.
It's so good.
Favorite Masters tournament you've ever watched? Now, I'm going to say mine because you didn't watch this. You weren't alive. It was the 1986 Masters. Every other golf tournament that's ever existed falls behind that one. And that's not an opinion. It's a statement of fact. What is your favorite you've watched?
My favorite Masters tournament, man, definitely Bubba's first Masters.
The hook sand wedge on 18?
The hook sand wedge on 8, yes. Or
10? Was it 10?
On 10. The hook sand wedge on 10. Because I distinctly remember that shot. And then I went to the golf course the next day and told everyone that I was going to be a Masters champion too.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. And
that hasn't come to fruition yet.
No, that's right. Not yet.
Any superstitions on the golf course?
Yes. So on my 24th birthday, which was a fantastic birthday, I bought a UT ball marker, and every time, and it has 2 sides. It's a poker chip. I only use poker chip ball markers. One side has the Hook'em Horns logo, the Longhorn logo. The other side has the U and the T, which is a logo that no one really knows about. Everyone knows the Longhorn logo. Every time the Longhorn logo is up on my poker chip ball marker, I know the putt's going in. Every time I put the marker down and it's just the U and the T, I know the putt's not going in. And that doesn't matter. Like, I can throw it down and the UT could be up from 3 feet. I know I'm missing that putt. So I have to turn the poker chip around so the Longhorn logo is showing. That's my only superstition.
Mine, the penny that I marked my golf ball with, Abraham Lincoln had to be looking down the line where I wanted the putt to go. So.
Yeah.
Max, if that was a Baylor poker chip, the bear head on the BU, it'd go in every time, no matter what.
Yeah.
See there, you're right, Mikkel.
Need to get you one of those.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Last question. Your dream foursome, you and 3 others. Who would they be?
Yep. Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy.
Okay. Well, Max, thank you for the speed round. Thank you for taking time to be on the podcast today. And I just want to wish you all the best, whether it's teaching the game for a living over the next 40 or 50 years, or maybe being a coach one way or another. I guess we'll just stay tuned to see what happens. Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for, again, taking the time out of your busy schedules. You guys both are, mean so much to me as people. You guys do it right as coaches, and just as coaches, I look up to you guys so much. So thank you guys for taking the time. This was so much fun for me to be on the podcast. Like I said, I'm a big fan, and best of luck to y'all's team. I know you guys next week up in Illinois. So best of luck to you guys, and thanks again.